We can speak to Julie Lennars, who's Executive Director of the Human Security Centre. Hello to you, Julie.
Hello, Simon. Nice to talk to you.
And you too. People sometimes see America as a malign force, don't they, because of its foreign policy adventures. They blame America for fanning those flames, don't they?
Yes, they do. I mean, it's a very prominent sort of argument to make that somehow American foreign policy in particular is sort of the root cause of terrorism, and I think it's wrong. It has no legitimacy, and if you actually put this thesis to the test, you will find it misleading, you will find it fraudulent, you will find it a complete distortion of reality. And you know, I could give you plenty of examples for that, really.
But don't we have to listen to what, for example, Muslim people are saying in Muslim countries? And many Muslims cite American incursions into their lands and American boots on their soil as the reason for their anger. They use that as a justification for some of their actions.
Yes, they do. I mean, very often if you listen to videos ISIS is sort of putting on the net, one prominent reason they say for their jihad is foreign occupation. But actually, if you look at that argument, again, you will find it misleading, you will find it fraudulent, you will find it hypocritical, because ISIS, as an example, has 15,000 foreign fighters from 24 countries. Now, you know, there are people from Chechnya now fighting in Iraq, now fighting in Syria on behalf of ISIS. Now, is that not, you know, a foreign intrusion? Why is it only a foreign occupation if Britain is involved, if America is involved? It's hypocritical. You know, they should apply the same standards to themselves. And also, if you ask yourself, who's killing most Muslims? It's not America, it's not Britain, it's groups such as ISIS. So if they would follow their own logic, you know, then Boko Haram would need to turn against Al-Qaeda, and Al-Shabaab would need to turn against ISIS, and Al-Nusra would need to turn against Anjurat Sharia. So there is so much hypocrisy involved in this argument, and I think we categorically have to reject it.
What about the continued support for Israel by the United States? I mean, indeed, many people see Israel's existence, you know, I mean, we are going back very, very far in history now, but they see that as an incitement in itself, don't they? The very existence of Israel in this land, which was Palestine.
Yes, but again, you know, this sort of interdependency theory that, you know, when we were to solve the Israel-Palestine conflict, then we would somehow magically resolve all the conflicts in the Middle East. Again, that is ridiculous. I mean, what's happening in Syria at the moment has nothing to do with Israel. What's happening in Iraq at the moment has absolutely nothing to do with Israel. What's happening in Libya at the moment has absolutely nothing to do with Israel.
But surely, do you agree that the settlement building of Israel, the expansionism of Israel, has been a legitimate reason for certainly Palestinian anger?
Yes, I mean, of course, you can make that argument within sort of, you know, the Israel-Palestine conflict. That's an entirely different matter. But often Israel is used again as a reason for, groups such as ISIS, and it's simply not true. This is not the reason. The root cause for groups such as ISIS is what the Prime Minister rightly called poisonous ideology, you know, an ideology that is inherently inhumane, brutal, exclusive in nature, rejects absolutely everything that's not in line with itself, and that is the only root cause for groups such as ISIS.
What about the argument that American actions act as a recruitment sergeant? In other words, when America is interventionist and acts militarily, that only recruits younger future generations of jihadists, and so it's counterproductive.
Well, again, I would ask you to look at Syria, for instance, at the moment. In fact, Syria has attracted more foreign fighters than any other conflict in recent history, including Afghanistan. And the US, at least until now, was not involved in Syria. In quite the opposite. You know, Barack Obama tried everything he possibly could to stay out of Syria. Yet we see all these people coming to Syria, fighting on behalf of ISIS. So again, it is fraudulent and it's misleading to say that American foreign policy is causing this.
Do you think President Obama, therefore, has realised that whatever America does, whether it be retrenchment and isolation or an aggressive foreign policy, it will have these enemies, and perhaps it needs to face them down rather than try to negotiate or to offer olive branches?
Well, I'm not sure Barack Obama has really realised that. I'm still sceptical about, sort of the degree of his action and the success of it. But yes, I think you're absolutely right. We have to reject this idea, and we have to realise that no matter what we do, these people hate us, and they will come for us. And if it's take away foreign policy, and they would still hate religious pluralism, they would still hate equal rights for men and women. They would still hate homosexuality. So you can take away foreign policy, and you will still face groups such as ISIS.
Yeah, and just finally, Julie, you were keen to separate out the Palestine question in all this, and as a rationale or as a driver for some of the atrocities in the Middle East. But is it not the case that that does feed into it? And it's very often cited by the various organisations, by Hamas certainly, when it comes to their aggressive acts themselves.
Yes, but again, I think if you actually look at statistics, very few foreign fighters that fight for ISIS or Al-Qaeda from Palestine. Many of these people come from Saudi Arabia, they come from Chechnya, Bosnia. So again, I think we have to carefully separate between, sort of the inter-Israel-Palestinian conflict and the wider sort of problems we face with Islamic extremism.
I must just ask you one more question, since you mentioned Saudi Arabia. The West is terribly hypocritical when it comes to Saudi Arabia, is it not? It looks both ways. It is happy to take its oil and its revenues and its help in that sense, but Saudi Arabia plots against it in many ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, Saudi Arabia is a very complex, and it's not the most complex sort of problem we face in the Middle East. Right now, with respect to ISIS, we have a common enemy there. ISIS is as much a threat to Saudi Arabia as it is a threat to us. And right now, I think the support of Muslim countries such as Saudi Arabia is very important for our campaign in Iraq and in Syria, because the counter-narrative for the ideology ISIS is presenting has to come from inside the Muslim world. It cannot be imposed by us. It has to come from inside the Muslim community, and for that we also need the support of the Arab states, and that unfortunately also includes Saudi Arabia.
Julie, so good to talk to you. Thanks a lot for your time in the programme. That's Julie Lenars there from the Human Security Centre. You might